Madam President, thank you for allowing me to address the Security Council. I thank Madam Bintu Keita, the SRSG, and the head of MONUSCO for her briefing. I also thank Dr. Peter Matuki, the Secretary General of East African Community, Ms. Rebecca Kabuo, and members of the Security Council for their statements. Rwanda welcomes the efforts and commitment of regional leaders to find a durable solution to the DRC conflict, especially His Excellency Lorenzo, President of Angola, on the Rwanda roadmap, and the former President of Kenya, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, the facilitator for the East African Community peace process. Madam President, a military solution alone cannot solve the root causes of the security crisis in Eastern DRC and the Great Lakes region. All countries in the Great Lakes region understand that peace in one country depends on peace in the other. Hence, the regional Rwanda and Nairobi mechanism are essential processes that need shared commitment and political will to be fully implemented, as well as the support and understanding of the international community to ensure sustainability. As a member of the region, Rwanda remains committed and fully supports the ongoing regional peace processes. We have high expectations that these initiatives will finally address the root causes and drivers of the endemic crisis in DRC, which have an impact on neighboring countries, including Rwanda. However, Rwanda deplores the unhelpful external interference in the regional and continental processes by some members of the international community, which serve to shield the DRC from accountability regarding its unresponsiveness to commitments made through ongoing processes and ultimately risks undermining the success of these initiatives. Rwanda believes that the quest for long-lasting peace in DRC cannot be achieved by spreading a dangerous and false narrative which exacerbates the problem and puts lives at risk. Furthermore, parallel forums by some countries are counterproductive to the ongoing African regional efforts and must cease to allow African regional processes to succeed. Madam President, Rwanda has made it clear that the conflict between the M23 and the DRC government is an internal matter. Therefore, Rwanda should neither be a scapegoat nor equated to M23. This distortion only masks the real problem and accountability of those who should be answerable for addressing the root causes and drivers of the conflict in the DRC. A lasting solution requires the responsibility to be placed where it belongs. Madam President, much as you agree with the Secretary General's report that the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DRC should be respected, questions remain unanswered. First, when are we going to address the violations of Rwanda's sovereignty and territorial integrity by the DRC, which occurred on several occasions as verified by the expanded joint verification mechanism? This year alone, cross-border sharing on the Rwandan territory took place on the 19th March, 23rd May, and 20th June, which was followed by the violation of Rwandan airspace and territory by the DRC Sukhoi 25 fighter jet on 7th November 2022. Second, when is the international community going to address the persistence of the FDR and alliance between FRDC and deadly armed groups, including FDLR, a sanctioned genocidal terrorist group made up of remnants of the force that committed the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda and known for spreading genocide ideology? It is surprising that the SRSG, Madam Bintu Keita, in her statement, has mentioned all the key rebel groups in DRC, but not once mentioned FDLR, which is sanctioned by this council. I don't know if it is an omission or deliberate, or feels that it does not pose any threat to any country. Rwanda has for decades expressed concerns over the FDLR, including its support by DRC and its collusion with their national army, the FRDC. This alliance between FRDC and FDLR was responsible for several attacks on Rwandan territory and skirmish attacks that claimed the lives of innocent civilians. Madam President, Eastern DRC has more than 130 armed groups, actually 132 in the last count, both local and foreign. Still, the international community remains concerned with only one armed group and ignores the rest, many of which are far more dangerous, including FDLR, a genocidal force that was sanctioned by this Council. As mentioned above, military capabilities alone are not enough to resolve the problem in DRC. But more importantly, it requires political will for an inclusive dialogue, implementation of the signed agreements, and addressing the lack of accountability. On the disarmament of the armed groups operating in the DRC, especially the foreign ones, we remain concerned that the issue is not given enough attention and support. Yet their presence in DRC forms the core of the problem, as raised in the ongoing regional mediation efforts. Madam President, hate speech against Rwandans and any Kinyarwanda-speaking communities in the DRC has recently intensified, as reported by the Undersecretary General on Genocide Prevention, Madam Nderitu. Hate speech hate speech does not only undermine social cohesion and peaceful cohabitation, but it also endangers lives, as we have seen in recent months. But unfortunately, hate speech is becoming a way to gain political power, and therefore a reason to perpetuate this violence against ethnic minorities. In this regard, the issue of ethnic minorities and ethnic cleansing must be a top priority on the UN Security Council's peace agenda on the DRC. Madam President, we are appalled by the silence of this Council on the hate speech, xenophobia, and the killings targeting the Congolese Tutsi population, which has escalated. On this note, we thank the Secretary General's Special Advisor on the Genocide Prevention, the Undersecretary Alice Nderitu, for condemning and pointing out these ongoing atrocious crimes. We also thank Kenya on behalf of the A3 to elaborate on this issue of hate speech in their statement of today. You have all heard the call of DRC political leaders, military leaders, church leaders, and civil society calling for the killing of what they call enemies, traitors, infiltrators, unwanted, or foreigners. Rwanda calls on the elected members of this Council, particularly the A3, to not ignore the incidents of atrocities and the crimes against humanity committed against people because of who they are, how they look, or their ethnic group. This Council should never again allow itself to reproduce the silence of the Council 28 years ago, which passively watched the rapid, systematic, and most widely broadcasted genocide that took over 1 million human lives in Rwanda. During that time, 28 years ago, only 3 elected members of the UN Security Council, namely Czech Republic, New Zealand, and Nigeria, spoke out while other council members remained silent in order not to anger the genocide regime. Finally, Rwanda reminds the Council that there are over 80,000 Congolese refugees living in the refugee camps in Rwanda, many for over 20 years. When will these refugees be allowed to safely return to their homes and finally live dignified lives in their own country? Madam President, let me conclude by reiterating the need for a holistic approach to address the endemic crisis in the DRC and call for the recommitment to the peace, security, and cooperation framework for the DRC and the region for a long-lasting solution. In the same vein, Rwanda calls upon the DRC government to honor the various regional peace agreements that have been established to restore order and stability in the region.